I do a podcast for a lot of different reasons, informational. I like doing it and also try to build relations and engage with you. And maybe someday we'll meet at one of our events, especially at our galas. Today I want to talk about entrepreneurship. It looks like when I was doing some searching that in entrepreneurship and innovation is a very popular subject among veterans. And I think it's because in today's world, I'm about to turn 60 in September 10th, I'll be 60. And when I was growing up, and obviously I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here, but for a good reason. When I was growing up, having a job, finding a company, filling out your application, going through processing, whether it's 7-Up, Coca-Cola, the post office, some gigantic insurance company like USAA, although I think USAA is still pretty stable. Finding a job and being there for 20 to 30 years and then collecting a pension, those days aren't like, they were like they once were. They're just not. My wife's a teacher. She works for I believe the largest school district in the country, Los Angeles Unified School District. So there is a bit of an exception there. But the exception is now the norm, is that there aren't jobs out there that you can get into and then stay there and move up the ladder. I attended a sort of like a job, it wasn't a job fair. It was sort of like a fellowship, Veterans Collab, I think they call it in Los Angeles. There was about 80 of us in there. And we're sitting at a table. Everyone just got out of the military. Some of us had been around a while, so I was one of the ones that were sort of, I guess, like a little mentor or providing advice. And this one veteran, I believe he was in the Army, and he was basically almost on the verge of tears and says, "Look, I just want a job where I can feed my family and buy a house and, collect a paycheck and, that is my career." And I just had to do my very best to tell him what I believe the reality is and do so in a way that, didn't, kind of hurt his, his emotion about the whole thing. So I want to encourage you that in today's, with all the technology in today's world, it is so much easier to start your business or start a business than it ever was before. It's not easy, no question about it. There is a stick-to-itiveness that you must have, and you got to stick to it. But my goodness, the rewards, and I'm not just talking about financial rewards, but the rewards outweigh anything else. And what I mean by that is feeling of fulfillment, feeling that you accomplished something, you did something for somebody else, which is, I think, part of the criteria to doing a good business. What are you doing for somebody else? I always feel that way. Even though I come across as maybe an ego guy, I love doing stuff for other people. I really do. All right, so here's why veterans make good entrepreneurs. My little AI is telling me here that veterans actually are comfortable, whether they realize it or not. They're comfortable with risk and uncertainty. Part of entrepreneurship is not knowing when your next client is coming in, when your next dollar is coming in, what you need to do to get to the next step. A lot of us, and I'll share with you my personal story real quickly here in a bit. A lot of us throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and then we go with what's working. And what you plan for sometimes doesn't work, and sometimes what you didn't plan for does work. And vice versa. Okay, comfort with risk and uncertainty. We have a mission-driven mindset, whether we realize it or not. Veterans, when they're at a workplace, and I'm not talking about only fighters in the battlefield or people that go into wartime. Yes, for sure, that mission is clear. You got to get the enemy, protect yourself, or rescue, whatever it is. But whatever the mission is, whether you're a delivery guy, you work in motor T and fixing the cars, military policeman like I was, the mission is really, really clear. And we just go for it to make sure that we accomplish that mission. So we're a mission-driven. We have a mission-driven mindset. We experience leading diverse teams under pressure. I would say in the military and the veterans, mostly, that we experience, probably every single veteran actually, we experience an extraordinary amount of pressure. And I remember just even boot camp. Now, boot camp, I did think it was a bit of a joke, just the way I took it. I had a hard time not laughing at boot camp, and I served in the Marine Corps. I seriously did. I thought the drill instructors kicking around foot lockers and overturning mattresses on racks. It was just a game, yelling at you at the food line. I just thought it was really funny. I had a hard time not laughing. But a lot of people took that as pressure. When we get inspected with our uniforms, standing in formation, getting performance reviews, being on time, there's absolutely no exception for being late, they're very hard on us for being punctual. I mean, just on and on and on and on, just a lot of pressure. So there's a lot of pressure in business. In fact, I actually experienced more pressure in business than I did in the military. However, it wasn't something that I was unaccustomed to. I tell people all the time, listen, if you want to start your own business, you better get used to you better get used to uncertainty and a lot of pressure. And here, last thing here is resourcefulness. Veterans are so resourceful. Just imagine yourself, and this happens a lot in the Marine Corps or some of the other branches, or maybe some of the departments, some of the platoons, some of the detachments, whatever your lingo is, whatever branch of service you're in, that they're not always well funded. So you have to make do with what you have. Maybe you take a bicycle to go from point A to point B to get something done, or because there are no cars. Maybe the weather is bad. Maybe there's no mail. Maybe there's no internet. At one time, I was in Korea. There was no hot water. In fact, there was no water for taking showers. They had to bring in this gigantic water bag, and we all had to take a shower once a week, and we had to get in and get out. We just do what we can because that's what we kind of developed, being resourceful. Same thing in business. Like, where am I going to get this money? Where am I going to get this client? Where am I going to get this employee? How am I going to accomplish this with a shoestring budget or no budget at all whatsoever? We figure it out. One veteran that I think that I would like to point to show that veterans are successful out there and are successful entrepreneurs. How about the founder and CEO of Black Rifle Coffee, Evan Hafer? Listen, it says here he's a former U.S. Army Green Beret. He launched Black Rifle Company in 2014. I was so excited when I was visiting San Antonio. This is like within a year ago. And I saw I think it was their first store. I should check that out. In fact, I'm going to type that in. What was their first retail store? I got there when it had only been opened up for a week, and I was just like a little kid in a candy shop with the merchandise, and it was kind of expensive, I got to admit. But I just loved, Bernie, Texas in 2019. It was Bernie, Texas. So I was in San Antonio about a year ago, and they had opened one up. It was awesome. Everything was just military. The merch, coffee was great. It was strong, tasted good. But now, according to, this is old information, 2018, it was $30 million in revenue with 100 subscription in subscribing customers probably buying that online. And finally, I have my own little story. I started a private security company in 1994, right before I got out of the Marine Corps. And I sold my last company in 2015. And everything that I'm sharing with you about uncertainty, pressure, resourcefulness, I went through myself. And I built it up to 500 employees, offices from here to Chicago, sold it to a $1 billion company in 2015. I've been in a nonprofit business ever since, for the most part. And I'm here to say that other than being in California, it was I could go down a whole new, path there. That California did give me a hard time. Regulations. I lost pretty much every case when it came to unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. But at least the weather was nice. and the clients were plentiful, especially out here in Los Angeles. So there's always, pros and cons to things. But if you are thinking about starting your business, feel free to send me a message. I'll send you a free coffee cup, and I'll be glad to talk to you. And one last thing, and this could be a topic for another day. I used to love buying businesses, buying companies instead of having to go through the work of starting something from scratch. If you're good at finance and organization and deal structure, which you don't have to be an MBA to create. There's a lot of MBAs out there who probably never started a business. I eventually got mine after I was already in, and so I just loved going to school. It was at Pepperdine. Is that I actually learned how to buy companies with no money down, using their money, and it was a win-win scenario. And I think most of the companies were in trouble, so I kind of went in there on a rescue type way to make sure the company didn't fail, and then we reorganized it and that sort of thing, and then sold the big company off later on. Anyway, that's it for me. Be an innovator. Don't be afraid to be an innovator. Don't be afraid to be an entrepreneur. And I'll talk to you next time.